guys, it's April from the Gumboot Garden. I wanted to share this super easy bread recipe with you. It's from Recipe Tin Eats, and I'll link the recipe down in the description box for you, and you can check it out. Its name is literally called World's Easiest Yeast Bread Recipe, and it really is. It just takes a couple minutes to throw the dough together, then you let it rise and bake it. The hardest part is actually like lifting the Dutch oven in and out of the stove. So let's get started and you'll see exactly how easy it really is. To get started, I have just sifted 3 cups of high-grade flour into my large mixing bowl. I have my salt out, ready to be used, and the recipe says specifically not to use table salt. It does ask for kosher salt. I'm not really sure what that is, so you can let me know if it's much different than the Himalayan salt that I'm using. And I also have my fast-acting yeast that I'm going to be using. We just have to add 2 teaspoons of the yeast in here. There's 1 teaspoon and the 2nd teaspoon. Then the recipe does call for 2 teaspoons of salt as well. I typically only put in half of the salt, but of course that's up to your preference as well. I'm just going to mix in the dry ingredients first. And typically when I make this bread, I do double the recipe, but just to keep things easier for showing you what I do when I take it out of the bowl, I'm just doing 1 loaf for now. Once I have the ingredients all mixed up, I do have to add in 1.5 cups of warm tap water. So here is the 1st cup, and then I have another 1/2 cup to add. Now the warm water is what activates the yeast, and we want to make sure that it's just warm and not too hot, because otherwise it will kill the yeast, and we don't want that because that's what's helping it all rise. So now I'm just mixing this together. And I know that I'm supposed to be using a wooden spoon, but I don't know why. So if you do know why, and if it is a big deal, please let me know, because maybe I can make this bread recipe, make my bread even better using a wooden spoon. But I just noticed that it was sticking to the wooden spoon more so than it sticks to the metal spoon, so that's why I'm not using a wooden one. But please leave a comment if there is a legit reason to be using wood rather than metal. Now I have just mixed this until it's all combined. Yes, my fingers are clean and I'm rubbing this off. And I'm just going to set this aside on the counter. I'll cover it up, but I'm just gonna set it aside, and we're going to let this rise to get double in size. Once it's double in size, I can just put this in the refrigerator and let it stay there for up to 3 days until I'm ready to take this and bake it. Now, I don't intend on letting this stay in the refrigerator too long. Technically, I said that I would be having a fresh loaf of bread ready for breakfast in the morning, but that's probably not going to happen. So that's it, guys. For now, we're just letting this rise, and we'll come back once that's all done. It is the next morning, and I have had not only my oven, but my Dutch oven preheating at 230 degrees Celsius for the past 45 minutes. And that's because I want to make sure that we're putting the loaf of bread into a hot Dutch oven, because we plan on steaming that for the first 30 minutes of our bake time. I have also taken our dough out of the fridge, and that has been returning to room temperature for about 45 minutes to an hour. and that's because cold dough does not rise well. So we want to make sure that we're warming that up a bit before we're putting it into the oven. So let's move on over to the table, and I'll show you exactly what I have going on there and how easy it will be to move the dough from the bowl into the oven. All right, set up on my table, I have my room temperature dough, a well-floured cutting board, and a large piece of parchment paper. All I have to do is scrape the dough out of the bowl with my spatula and smack it down onto the floured cutting board. There is absolutely no kneading involved in making this dough. I'm just grabbing each of the sides and folding them to the top. Then I'll pick up the dough, flip it over, and plop it onto the parchment paper. There's no need to worry about shaping it. It's good to go as it is. At this point, I'll take the Dutch oven out and place the parchment paper with the dough directly into the hot Dutch oven. I just make sure the parchment isn't folded into the dough too much before putting the cover back on. It will then all go into the oven for 30 minutes to steam before I remove the cover and let it brown and crisp for another 15 to 20 minutes. The oven times may vary a bit for you, so just be careful. My oven tends to take a bit longer to cook everything. Be sure to set the loaf on a cooling rack for 10 minutes after the baking is done because it will continue to cook a little during this time. Most times I set a 10-minute timer because I can't wait to cut into it. There is nothing better than a nice warm slice of fresh bread from the oven. If you enjoy this recipe, please like and subscribe to my channel. Catch you in the next one. Bye, guys.